thank you very much for coming. Thank you, everybody, and welcome at the Italian Cultural Institute in New York. We are very happy to host this important event with distinguished panelists, and I thank you very much our friend Alessia Panella and Claudia Segre for organizing the event, which will be very rich, very important, and also connected to the activities of the United Nations. So, as we say in Italian, benvenuti e buon lavoro.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Francesca Giuliani Hoffman. I'm going to be emceeing for this morning. I'm very glad to be in your company today. To kick us off, I would like us to start with some remarks and greetings from our distinguished speakers today. First up are going to be Martina Rogato, W7 co-chair, as well as Cordialina Coppola, officer in the Department of Equal Opportunities of the Italian Presidency of the Council of Ministries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. And it's a very pleasure for me to stay with you today. Let me start by thanking the women 7 co-chairs for the invitation. I represent here the Department for Equal Opportunities from the Italian Presidency of the Council of Ministers. And I want to share with you their greetings for the success of this event. It's I'm very honored to stay with you today. So, the issue before us today is how to foster women's financial empowerment as one of the keys of to achieving gender equality. This year, the work of the Commission of Status of Women also emphasized the aspect as the financial empowerment of women and economic empowerment. So, two factors are very important today. We need to combat poverty, and which we know that is one of the negative factor to achieving gender equality. And the second is to encourage women's empowerment and economic and financial empowerment, because only in this way the women can achieving their capability and their autonomy. Sorry for my English. So two factors are very important: the protecting women's economic independence and also tackling poverty are two very important factors, but also the importance of financial education of women and girls. Enhancing financial literacy among women open doors to the opportunities offered by economic and financial system, but also also against some risks like poverty of women, like financial fraud, and can even reduce the incidence of economic violence. Over the past 2 years, the Italian government has promoted women's participation in the labor market, fostered equal opportunities and in the business and employment sector. The commitment is further strengthened by the strategic partnership between public sector and private sector. because we recognize the important role of companies to improve economic empowerment of women. The concrete steps are taken by the Italian government include introducing tax incentives for company hiring women, a significant increase in the budget allocated to women business, in the guarantee fund for small and medium-sized enterprise, and the provision of dedicated funds to encourage girls to start STEM educational path. A measure that now is very important in our country is with a particular success is the gender equality certification systems for business established by Italian government and financed by the EU generation tools, aimed at fostering the implementation of action for gender equality and empowerment of women at the company level. The certification is also supported by a specific code of conduct for companies in favor of motherhood. That is a voluntary self-regulatory tool recently introduced by the government. The main objective is to create a culture and economic environment of cooperation between employers and employees of parenthood. So financial education is therefore crucial to ensure independence for all people, and it's very centrally a pathway to women's economic empowerment. Moreover, economic independence plays a fundamental role both in the prevention of gender-based violence and as a tool, also as a tool to escape, to cut the circuit of violence. In this perspective, the Italian government continues to strengthen dedicated measures such as the income of freedom in favor of women victims of violence, established within the framework of the action provided by the National Plan to Combat Male Violence Against Women, which consists in an economic contribution that aimed supporting primarily independence, autonomy for women, but also schooling and training for the children. The other measure is the microcredit, the Freedom Microcredit, created and encouraged entrepreneurial initiative on micro enterprise and self-employment of women, but that is extended also to all situations of particular fragility to promote women's social and financial inclusions. Finally, I would like also to mention the recent publication of an handbook. This handbook is against economic violence and is issued by the Department for Equal Opportunities and also the Italian bank associations in collaboration with banks and consumers associations. This handbook intends to strengthen the commitment to the promotion of gender equality through training and information activities addressed to all citizens, but is focused mainly on economic violence. Why? Because it's very important to help women to understand and also recognize the phenomenon. So, let me conclude by thanking again Women 7 and for this opportunity to exchange and dialogue. And also that we consider that is a result of the positive collaboration and relationships that the Department for Equal Opportunities has with this group, and including also in the framework of the current Italian presidents of G7. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Morning, evening, everyone. I'm Martina Rogato, co-chair of the W7. together with my colleague Claudia Segre and Anna Maria Tartaglia. Thank you so much for being here with us. And thanks to Dr. Coppola and to the Italian Department of Equal Opportunity.
questo inquadra qui, inquadra anche quello, perché così loro possono già sedersi e io saluto, ci sarà un panel all'inizio, lascio il posto perché è inutile che io mi sieda perché poi devo andare via. E intanto vi sedete, sì. Poi la moderatrice non so da dove modera la moderatrice, da dove modera?
Non si preoccupi.
Ok, perché allora bisogna che le lasciano una sedia di lato perché sennò si devono alzare tutte. No, ma io dicevo, cominciamo a accomodare quelle del primo panel. Ok. Allora faccio i saluti, tanto poi faremo un editing di tutto questo perché sennò viene fuori, ecco. Thank you very much for coming, thank you everybody, and welcome at the Italian Cultural Institute in New York. We are very happy to host this important event with distinguished panelists, and I thank you very much our friend Alessia Panella and Claudia Segre for organizing the event, which will be very rich, very important, and also connected to the activities of the United Nations. So, as we say in Italian, benvenuti e buon lavoro.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Francesca Giuliani Hoffman. I'm going to be emceeing for this morning. I'm very glad to be in your company today. To kick us off, I would like us to start with some remarks and greetings from our distinguished speakers today. First up are going to be Martina Rogato, W7 co-chair, as well as Cordialina Coppola, officer in the Department of Equal Opportunities of the Italian Presidency of the Council of Ministries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's a very pleasure for me to stay with you today. Let me start by thanking the women 7 co-chairs for the invitation. I represent here the Department for Equal Opportunities from the Italian Presidency of the Council of Ministers. And I want to share with you their greetings for the success of this event. It's I'm very honored to stay with you today. So, the issue before us today is how to foster women's financial empowerment as one of the keys of to achieving gender equality. This year, the work of the Commission of Status of Women also emphasized the aspect as the financial empowerment of women and economic empowerment. So, two factors are very important today. We need to combat poverty, and which we know that is one of the negative factor to achieving gender equality. And the second is to encourage women's empowerment and economic and financial empowerment, because only in this way the women can achieving their capability and their autonomy. Sorry for my English. So two factors are very important: the protecting women's economic independence and also tackling poverty are two very important factors, but also the importance of financial education of women and girls. Enhancing financial literacy among women open doors to the opportunities offered by economic and financial system, but also also against some risks like poverty of women, like financial fraud, and can even reduce the incidence of economic violence. Over the past 2 years, the Italian government has promoted women's participation in the labor market, fostered equal opportunities and in the business and employment sector. The commitment is further strengthened by the strategic partnership between public sector and private sector, because we recognize the important role of companies to improve economic empowerment of women. The concrete steps are taken by the Italian government include introducing tax incentives for company hiring women, a significant increase in the budget allocated to women business, in the guarantee fund for small and medium-sized enterprise, and the provision of dedicated funds to encourage girls to start STEM educational path. A measure that now is very important in our country is with a particular success is the gender equality certification systems for business established by Italian government and financed by the EU generation tools, aimed at fostering the implementation of action for gender equality and empowerment of women at the company level. The certification is also supported by a specific code of conduct for companies in favor of motherhood. That is a voluntary self-regulatory tool recently introduced by the government. The main objective is to create a culture and economic environment of cooperation between employers and employees of parenthood. So financial education is therefore crucial to ensure independence for all people, and it's very centrally a pathway to women's economic empowerment. Moreover, economic independence plays a fundamental role both in the prevention of gender-based violence and as a tool, also as a tool to to cut the circuit of violence. In this perspective, the Italian government continues to strengthen dedicated measures such as the income of freedom in favor of women victims of violence, established within the framework of the action provided by the National Plan to Combat Male Violence Against Women, which consists in an economic contribution that aimed at supporting primarily independence, autonomy for women, but also schooling and training for the children. The other measure is the microcredit, the Freedom Microcredit, created and encouraged entrepreneurial initiative on micro enterprise and self-employment of women, but that is extended also to all situations of particular fragility to promote women's social and financial inclusions. Finally, I would like also to mention the recent publication of an handbook. This handbook is against economic violence and is issued by the Department for Equal Opportunities and also the Italian Bank Associations in collaboration with banks and consumers associations. This handbook intends to strengthen the commitment to the promotion of gender equality through training and information activities addressed to all citizens, but is focused mainly on economic violence. Why? Because it's very important to help women to understand and also recognize the phenomenon. So, let me conclude by thanking again Women 7 and for this opportunity to exchange and dialogue. And also that we consider that is a result of the positive collaboration and relationships that the Department for Equal Opportunities has with this group, and including also in the framework of the current Italian presidents of G7. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Morning, evening, everyone. I'm Martina Rogato, co-chair of the W7, together with my colleague Claudia Segre and Anna Maria Tartaglia. Thank you so much for being here with us. And thanks to Dr. Coppola and to the Italian Department of Equal Opportunity and to Minister Roccella to support us and for this partnership during the G7. We are the official G7 engagement group on equal opportunity. Canada presidency decided it was important to add a new engagement group on G7 focused on women empowerment with an intersectional lens and on women's rights. Today we are 12 Italian organizations inside the Italy's committee driving and leading our presidency, and 72 advisors from all over the world, from G7 countries and beyond, that are supporting us in drafting our communique that we will deliver to Premier Giorgia Meloni next May during our Women's 7 Summit in Rome. Our goal so is policy making, is policy proposals, so stimulate G7 leaders in order to advance gender equality and also have a gender mainstreaming approach. So 72 delegates from all over the world. I see lots of them connected here, so a big hello from us, from NYC. And in those days and those weeks, we are working very hard to prepare our communique that will be focused on our 5 main priorities. And one is financial empowerment. Plus, we'll have labor, we have gender-based violence, climate justice, and peace and security. So our work, our advocacy, our content of recommendation is focused mainly on these 5 topics. Let me also add the fact that for identifying these 5 priorities, we had the chance of listening in Italy, plus 200 of associations working in Italy on gender opportunities. I saw lots of them connected, so my mornings full of them that are supporting us with their inputs, their reports. So the identification of these 5 topics is really a joint effort with lots of women and also men supporting us in achieving equality. So we did this consultation in October until December, and then we identified these 5 priorities. What we are now, we are together with our knowledge partners, we are arranging the final documents that will be finished in April 12, quite busy. 12, quite busy period for us, and we will present our recommendation on May 8 and 9 in our W7 Summit that will be in Rome. Thanks to Mayor Gualtieri, it will be al Sala della Protomoteca, so save the date please, because every one of you could connect from everywhere and follow us. Last but not least, obviously, we have 5 priorities. Our website will be launched very soon, but then we work on cross-sectional topics like gender discriminations and bias, then migration and the role of AI. So we have five pillars, let's say, but then cross-sectoral topics. Our topics obviously are under embargo, I used to say, but we are very happy to co-creating with you. So
in this work. So in conclusion, let me say the data speaks for itself. Unfortunately, we must address this bottom of the iceberg, which is still too often overlooked, and this is why I'm so happy that under Italy's leadership, we've had conversations in the Women Empowerment Working Group, been extremely privileged to be able to have this dialogue on how also can we support countries in Africa to look at this bottom of the iceberg dimension, which is the sticky points, which is the cause of why we don't see progress at the tip of the iceberg. More women in the labor force, it doesn't mean there's not enough jobs. So we really need to look at what's blocking them. What are the laws that are blocking them from being empowered? What are the masculine norms that sometimes where the man decides if you're allowed to have a job outside the house? Women not accessing contraception is not because the pharmacy is too far. It's because the man decides how many kids they can have because they're stuck at home doing unpaid care work. So even if you delivered it to their door, and because it's not culturally accepted. So we need to look way beyond what meets the eye. So that's really the whole essence of the SIGI. So as we have more and more feminist foreign policies, we also think that these transformational approaches, they need to come hand in hand with them. Because the way to transform is to really take a different approach. We think but looking at both norms and laws is really critical. Now, how do norms change? Well, I've said, companies have a role to play. You also have a role to play as individuals, how you raise your kids, what you watch. What you watch on Netflix, or when you go on, as you go back home and you look at what are the movies that you've missed. I don't have a lot of time, so I always go like, oh, good, what am I going to watch? This is Hollywood global culture. And what that culture doesn't have a lot of lead female roles, not a lot of women of color. The way culture shapes our understanding of the world is also very important. So these social norms globally, we all have a responsibility, I believe. As a mom of 2 boys and a girl, I'm trying to raise them as feminists. So changing norms takes time. It takes leaders and drivers of change. Imams that we've met in Côte d'Ivoire that have a radio advocating against female genital mutilation. Nobody can talk to other imams or to family leaders. If we went, nobody would listen to us. Also, they would say, the very nice white women, what do they know? And they would be right. About the local context, what do we know? But having these agents of change is really important. So we believe, again, that institutions, the executive branches, legislation, on the judiciary side too, organizations, but also individuals, all have a role to play to support women's economic empowerment, which is critical to unleashing progress and to achieve Agenda 2030. I will leave you with a quote that I think is pretty timely for our discussions. The future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So with that, let me thank you very much and thank again my colleagues for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Batil. That was so inspiring, and so many important points have been made. Especially, I relate particularly to the one about the importance of data in my day-to-day. That's something I definitely value. I would love to introduce now our panelists to the stage. While I have one of them here performing computer work, thank you so much for being a team player. I would love to introduce you to Virginia Littlejohn. who is joining us today. She is the co-founder and president of Quantum Leaps, an organization that is dedicated to developing a global female entrepreneurial ecosystem. She's an advisor to W7. She is the co-head of the US delegation of W20. So literally all of the W organizations she has a hand in. She's also the global coordinator for W20's action and implementation arm called Women Entrepreneurs Act, We Act, which is a deep partner of the 6 UN agencies in the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator. Again, a person who has too many awards, too many accomplishments to list right now in full. I would also love to be joined by Claudia Segre, who can grab a seat. She's the founder of the Global Thinking Foundation, an organization dedicated to women's financial empowerment. She is a co-chair of W7, our gracious host today. W7, as you all know, is the official civic engagement group for gender equality at the G7 Summit. She's been a trader, a manager, working in major banking groups like Grupo Intesa and Unicredit. And she's such an expert on fintech and sustainable development, and we are really interested in hearing more about that experience. Also joining us is Alessia Panella, a cassation lawyer, the founder of Alessia Panella Law Firm. She has a decade experience in public and private procurement consultancy, specializes in so many branches of the law, including urban planning, administrative law, international contract law, divorce, banking law. She does it all. She's also a very keen patron and a person who works in the world of arts. She's been very involved in cultural associations and consulting with galleries, museums, and artists. That includes the National Association of Modern and Contemporary Art Galleries in Italy. So we'll be interested in speaking with her about the importance of culture. But why don't we start with Virginia, who has some interesting points to make and wants to set the stage for us.
Well, first I would like to say how enormously much I appreciate being here and how thrilled I was to hear these data and statistics from the OECD. I think that really level sets for us what we need to accomplish and how important the role of the W7 and the W20 are. I'm going to be talking about two things primarily in my official remarks: gender responsive public procurement and finance. I'll start with the finance side. Some of you may be familiar with the WeFi program that was launched at the G20 with extensive funding from W7 and W20 countries. The WeFi has recently, in November, launched the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Code, designed to increase funding provided to women-owned and women-led micro-enterprises, SMEs, and small and medium enterprises, and growth enterprises. It's been in operation 6 years now and has provided $3.6 billion US in finance to women's SMEs and has reached about 160,000 women in its first 6 years. It's based on a UK best practice that was started in about 2018, which now has 249 financial contributors, development banks, angel groups, venture capital groups, and many financial institutions of different sorts. The program was a huge success in the UK, and WeFi then got about 30 international experts to look at it from a global perspective in terms of how it could be rolled out. It's now being piloted by 20 countries. Only one of them is a W20 country, that being Indonesia, and no W7 countries yet. But one of my objectives is to get W20 and W7 countries to also adapt it. Right now, it's mostly focused on developing economies. The things that a country needs to do to be part of this initiative: a public declaration of intent with very senior people from a bank or financial institution that they want to be signatories to the guidelines, setting up a governance process to provide oversight, having a designated coordinator for the country, and it could be the W7 team or the W20 team in Italy, pushing for something like that. And critically important, as we heard in the OECD presentation, is the data side of things. They officially launched this at CSW on Wednesday night, and every single speaker was a fanatic about the need for data. And if we are going to overcome the backlash that we are seeing on a global level against diversity, equity, and inclusion, against the growth of the women's economic empowerment movement, etc., we really need data, and I believe we also need to reframe how we position these issues so that everything is about the economy, you know, creating jobs, creating opportunities, jobs for men and women. And I really think we need to do serious work with reframing. And I would like to introduce Melissa Fisher right over here, who is a cultural anthropologist. In W7 right now, we are really, and Fabiana, from Argentina, also a cultural anthropologist. We're working on putting together a team of cultural anthropologists within W20, and we'd love to do it within W7 also, of people who can help us with the reframing and help us overcome this, you know, backlash that could make it even worse than what they announced last year at CSW in terms of how long it's going to take us to get to equity and equality. The second huge issue in economic empowerment and entrepreneurship is gender responsive procurement, both public procurement and corporate. I'll talk more about public right now. Global government procurement contributes as much as 12% of the world's annual GDP. Businesses around the world supply goods, services to run schools, hospitals, government agencies. And do you know how much of that goes to women-owned and led businesses right now? Of 100% of public procurement, exactly 1% goes to women-owned businesses. We have a huge amount of work to do to correct that, but I am thrilled to report that there are some major initiatives that have just been agreed to very recently to overcome such problems as lack of tendering skills and networks, overcomplicated requirements, inaccessible digital technologies in some countries, and biases, both conscious and unconscious. But the International Trade Center and UN Women, both members of a group that Women Entrepreneurs Act is working very closely with, the Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator, launched an initiative at CSW on Monday calling for statements of support by countries and international institutions and government pledges from countries with GRPP programs. That stands for Gender Responsive Public Procurement, or those who want to start GRPP programs. And there are various ways that countries can make pledges. There are 4 excellent brief publications that I recommend you look at. And Martina, I'll send you information on all of this so you can share it with the full network. But the whole area of corporate procurement is another issue. UN Women also part, in fact, the coordinator of this WEA initiative, Women's Entrepreneurship Accelerator, which W20 and We Act will be working so closely with. I hope W7 will be working equally closely, because we have the ability to connect some dots in a very powerful way. I'm into smashing silos at this point and working in coalitions so that we can achieve vastly more together. I love the OECD comment about the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed yet. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to make sure it is evenly distributed.
That's right. Smashing is right? One of the things I've been mulling over as we were preparing for this event, we're talking about nudging the world in the right direction, but data shows that it might take upwards of 131 years to achieve full parity. So when is it time to start smashing things? Claudia, please, enlighten us.
Also because we are quite exhausted about this data regarding 130 years, 150 years. And for this reason, I think that what we have seen during these CSW68 meetings was practical proposals, and this aim that was mentioned by Martina of co-creation is really tangible. From my side, I have to say that everything started before the decision taking place by Canada in 2018, during the G7 Italy of 2017, and thanks to Farnesina and the external relations, international relations ministry in Italy, Farnesina, Mrs. Dassou and the previous minister, they found this idea to represent into these meetings all the assumptions coming from the women delegation in here, and finally we started with education, adding financial education into education. At that time I was an advisory in this occasion, and there was with me Nina Garner, Professor Lusardi, then became the president of the Financial Education Committee in Italy. So this was a first step, and then finally Canada decided to finalize and officialize this Women's 7. That's very important because, as you can see, I perceive for what we have heard till now is, first of all, we are in the Temple of Culture and this institute in New York, and the fact to have people from Women's 7 delegation in US, like the women that already spoke for us, and particularly refer to the fact that there is this strong connection between Europe and US and the other continents to provide a level playing field of actions and projects in order to reduce this number of years that for us is really more than a challenge to do. And how we can do this thanks to the commitment of Women's 7 and so of the civil society, of all the associations represented by Women's 7, and the voice, the official voice of Women's 7 is using AI, taking consideration the cross lines regarding health, regarding the fact that gender equality, the goal 5, is a fil rouge of, as was mentioned by Batiya Messika, of all the other global goals. So the link between the achievement regarding gender equality and sustainability is really unique, and using the artificial intelligence and this framework from the United Nations Women of this transformative education, that is an incredible project, give to all countries the opportunity to to change things and to accelerate into the gender equality. Particularly on my side, and I want to say that financial empowerment for me is the crucial way to prevent all kinds of violences. In our model, the way to prevent economic violence mentioned into the Istanbul Convention, mentioned into the 190 ILO Convention for companies, to put in place in terms of measure also of prevention, is also the same aim that moved our department, our DPO department of the Minister Roccella, to realize new laws to reinforce the red code law that was a first step of application of the Istanbul Convention, and to move to an handbook to change in terms of language, and as was mentioned by Batiye, to change in terms of adding the efforts from social norms and the cultural change. Batiye was very kind not to mention that in Europe, unfortunately, Italy is the unique country with a gender gap in financial education, in STEM skills. And this is awful, and this is related to the low participation of women into the job market, only 52% instead of 70% in Europe. So I think that the cultural change is possible, but just to have a clear vision of the fact that we have to move on a parallel way between the official norms, norms like, for example, the Belgian law on feminicide, just saying words, right words for a right crime. And so to explain to people which is the difference against a crime against people that means social cost, human cost, like the orphanicide that remains, that is absolutely not acceptable for civil countries. So I think that we have to start from financial empowerment, because the only way to arm women to be independent, to take on their own decision and responsibility on their own. So, the way that procurement is changing things and adding people to move between public and private and first sector to work together like the engagement groups are doing, I think is the only way to change things.
Absolutely. I want to touch on, thank you. You've spoken at length, Claudia, about the importance of the law, right? And obviously Alessia brings that experience in a lived form, right? She's a law practitioner. Alessia, you and I have connected about the importance of access, equal access to justice. And I know you want to say a few more words about that.
In fact, I agree that financial empowerment is the winner, is true. But we don't have a concrete financial empowerment if there is not access or right access to justice. I mean, only if in concrete reality we can go to a court to say in the work, I'm part of, yes, of something in a company or in divorces, for example, we can't have a financial empowerment concrete. You know, in law we used to say, if there is a law but not a pain, this law is only a declaration. And this is true. I mean, not only for physical violence, but also in law, in the divorces, for example. I assist many clients, women, also men, but often women. They probably don't have money enough money for have a good separation or good divorce. In Italy we have separation then divorce. In other countries only divorce. I mean, probably the man often put like in a jail the woman with 3-4 cases, not only with that one divorce, but 3 other cases, and that for the women they need money for pay a lawyer, for have a good justice, because without that we can have only for free lawyer, probably a free lawyer can do 3-4 cases in a good way. He has to, or she has to live, you know, with the job, with the money. So this is a great problem. In divorces, often when we have these kind of cases, a woman doesn't have the economical force to resist to 3, 4 cases or 3 level of justice, and probably often they have to make a deal with the husband, you know, and to have to refuse, for example, a check for the mother, but only to have the check for children, or to have a lower check, but the lifestyle of all the family after the divorce, not only for the woman, but also for the children, is very different. So these are difficulties in concrete. And I'm speaking of Italy, of Europe, probably of the US. We are not speaking about the law in emergent country where the law is not existing in concrete. No, in Ghana, in Pakistan now they can be owner, the women can be owner of something, or they can have divorce. But they never are able to go to the court. Probably they don't have the culture to understand who their rights are. And then if they know, they don't have money, or they don't think to be able to go in court. These are incredible situations. I made in 2021 a cultural salotto in Venice against the Afghanistan situation for women. It was incredible. We collect letters for the warriors, women there. They couldn't have at that time possibility to go to escape from the families. I read this letter of the women a woman who tried to take a bus to go to the lawyer, not official lawyer, woman, for escape to the family. She had the burqa. She couldn't see the stop. So I bought in this situation in Venice a burqa because I have for many years, and I asked to a photographer to take the picture of the women present in the sunshine. It was impossible to see the woman. Think what is possible to do for a woman there if they are escaping to try to have justice. And in this kind of country, the justice is the Sharia justice. Is not the court justice. So how can we do there? It's there we need a cultural exchange. But I mean that in work, in job, in divorces, we have to do something also in Italy, for example, where violence, economical violence is not recognized from the law. This is an incredible thing. No, we are not speaking of Afghanistan. So we have to do work very well and hard to change the situation.
Something that I'm hearing here, and I heard you, Claudia, refer to this as well, and Virginia, I would love you to also contribute to the conversation. And I know our keynote speaker also spoke about the fact that in the presence of laws, that's great progress. Like where there are codified ways for women to have recourse, for women to have equal opportunity, that's fantastic. That's not everywhere, but in some places, in most places at this point. However, there is a big gap between putting something on paper and implementing it. Can we delve deeper into that? Whoever wants to take it.
Well, first of all, Francesca has sent us excellent questions that I would love to have a whole day being able to deal with that with, OECD and W7 on the discussion panel too. I'll start off with what I was going to say originally, and then I'll say what I've just been thinking about in the last few minutes. What I was going to say originally was how important it is, I think, that W7 and W20 collaborate more than we have historically. We've had a few crossover people, but not as much as I think we could benefit from. I think we also, at least as far as W20 is, we need to engage with G20 Empower and the B20's Women in Business Action Council. which India did not continue last year. It started in Saudi Arabia. It's excellent. It has some really smart strategic people on it, and Brazil has reactivated it. It's also really important for us to engage with the other W7 engagement groups and the other, sorry, I didn't say that right, the other G7 engagement groups and the other G20 engagement groups to cross-fertilize our ideas with them. If it's this stream, this stream, this stream, this stream, we don't have fusion, we don't have critical mass. And I think that's what we really need to do. Okay, now that's what I was originally going to say. After listening to our esteemed panelists, I'm feeling more and more radical. I've been doing women's entrepreneurship since the 1970s, and at first we were completely invisible. I only did the US to begin with, then starting in 1984, I worked with AIDA, which is a very important Italian organization, worked incredibly closely with AIDA and the world president of Les Femmes Chefs d'Entreprise Mondiale, which AIDA is a member of, and a group in the US that I'm a past president of. Are members there in 80-some countries now. We don't use them adequately. There's so much we can do with that organization. Claudia mentioned AI, and oh boy, is that important. It is a game changer at the 100th power compared to just the internet so far. It has enormous challenges, and it has absolutely spectacular benefits and opportunities for us. But we have to learn how to regulate it. We have to have intelligent policymakers who understand what it is and how it can be regulated. We have cybersecurity issues that are hugely important. And from a purely women's point of view, we've got biases in the algorithms that we need to deal with that are critically important. I use the internet for probably at least an hour or two every day. Every week, every month, I'm trying to figure out strategies. And I think that's one thing that we need to do. We need to work with the smartest sociologists, cultural anthropologists, AI experts, strategists, and I think we have to do something that we did in the United States that was sub rosa. We basically, sub rosa means sort of under, it was sort of underground. We really didn't talk about it very much. But in the early stages of the women entrepreneurship movement in the US, we had a group of mostly people from Washington, D.C., but some from Chicago, some from Silicon Valley, etc., who basically came up with strategies of how we were going to make women's entrepreneurship important in the United States. One pattern we discovered, and I'm talking now in the early 1980s, I originally was involved with this in California in the late 70s before I moved to Washington. But we found men who had only daughters. And we got some of those men as our champions. We'd have them give speeches at the American Bankers Association. We found men who had 3 to 5 daughters and no sons were unbelievably effective spokespersons for us. And we had them testify in Congress. They were almost like honorary women business owners. And then we identified other people who could help us make the point. The relationship with academics is so important. I'd like to introduce Farah Arab in the back. Farah is the co-chair of the Harvard Kennedy School graduate group, their women's network. Being able to make the business and economic case in a reframed kind of way, where we don't sound like we're threatening, we sound like we are creating opportunities for the planet. And if you look at what the impact will be with more women in the workforce, more women with entrepreneurial positions that can create jobs, the transformation that is going to happen with AI, and the importance of laws that are implemented, not just, you know, on paper, because there's so many laws that are just on paper and nobody knows anything about them. But I'm now going to share with you something from Saudi Arabia. We had a W20 event in Saudi Arabia in January of 2020, before the world knew about COVID yet. And it was just a few days after the World Economic Forum. Many of the people that I had one-on-one meetings with there were people who had been invited to speak at the World Economic Forum. And the reason they were invited to speak at the World Economic Forum is because MBS or someone very high up in the government decided to change a lot of things that made Saudi Arabia look bad in the World Bank's Women, Business, and the Law publication. So it was ordained that the woman who was in charge of competitiveness for the government in 6 weeks was to get a number of ministries to change a series of laws that made them look bad. So one of her staff members had to go talk to every one of these ministers. You've got 6 weeks to get this together. And a whole bunch of things changed. And they all appeared in Women, Business, and the Law. And something like 4 or 5 women from Saudi Arabia were invited to be speakers. And it made Saudi Arabia look like it was reforming and doing all kinds of things. So I'm saying we need to come up with the Global Brain Trust working on these issues across the OECD, the World Bank, the UN, the W7, the W20, fantastic academics like some of the people we have in the audience are graduates of the Harvard Kennedy School, and we don't tout that we're doing this, but we use AI and we use the brain power that we have in our global network, and we take it from there and we make change happen.
That's an important point. Claudia, speaking of brain power, obviously the conference is ongoing at the UN. You've been in the room for the entire week. You'll continue to be in the room. I'm curious, you know, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I'd love you to bring me along and bring all of us along in the conversation. And what is giving you hope? What is giving you action items as you look towards your summit in the W7 summit in May in Rome? What are some of the takeaways that you're bringing with?
So first of all, it was an incredible experience and for us very fruitful preparing our summit with Martina and meeting so many people committed from Mrs. Dalli, the Commissioner for the Gender Equality of the European Commission that will participate to our summit, from people from AGE and from the other government, but particularly people from the Global South. This was really the opportunity to exchange with them practical actions and projects, because in my experience from working in Italy, France and Brussels, we already used to work into the Francophone countries and to exchange also during the T20 and G20 from our think tank papers and projects with African countries and universities. And the problem is exactly the same. The way to have girls and women independent, the way to manage their own digital wallet. Think about the example of M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a platform in Africa with more than 45 million people working, and particularly women. 70% are women using microfinance, managing their own digital wallet. This is a strong example that you can replicate in other countries, because the way to have this management autonomously by women is another first point to preserve also children from a situation of over-debt or losing familiar resources coming into a share and the improvement of the economic sustainability of families. But another point is that what emerges is not only the need of collecting data, but the way to measure the results. That's not the time of saying, okay, my project is very good because I don't know, because is very well organized. The problem is that we need project with specific KPI. We need project with specific results, identifying the targets, measure the results. And I've seen, for example, for our foundation was really the big change, because when we started with our education providing courses, in this 5 year more than 10,000 women participating for free, obviously, to these courses, from the basic of financial education towards startup upskilling and reskilling. And thanks to the quantitative measurement of the leverage of the money that we have produced in terms of social impact, finally, we represent this data and the measure of the results in addition to the French Parliament during the discussion for the Pierre-Marie Rixain law. This was an incredible occasion. You think about an Italian foundation participating in an audition into the French Parliament. This was very important because the equality, gender equality, financial equality law of Marie-Pierre Rixain is a pillar for all Europe and other countries. And we have discussed a lot also during these meetings, because both companies and government realize that we can change the social welfare inside the companies. Also when there are not enough protection coming from laws, not enough protection coming from norms, from the language of norms regarding violence, but to apply the change into the social welfare thanks to the commitment of the companies, directly from the companies, because there is easy to do so than wait then for the Parliament and Senate or whatever, and all the path of the approval of law that is different from different countries. Is easier in some other countries like France, like Spain. We have seen also the law against the rape as a crime. But another thing is also that we have discussed is the fact that as an example of the Anglo-Saxon countries, they changed the domestic abuse bill, adding the financial abuse and the economic violence as a sort of crime. I think this is very easy also for the European countries to take this as an example and to give an equal recognition between economic and psychological violence and physical and sexual violence, as was mentioned by the Istanbul Convention, and then move on prevention with a strong commitment. So again, I think that the experience coming from across countries, from low-income countries and high-income countries, find really an exchange not only in words, but in actions and connections to move ahead with new, not only manifesto, but deeds.
Absolutely. I know we've spoken lots about the role of culture and the role of norms, and the bottom of the iceberg issue that we are facing, right? Alessia, I know you're very active in the world of arts. You are you're a big believer in culture being a catalyst for change. Can you tell us a little more about what you hope to see happening in the space and how we can leverage conversation and culture as a tool?
I think that is very important to change the laws, but as we see in the emergent countries, you can change the law, but how many times 137. Last year in the United Nations, I listened 2070 during, yeah, so I mean, it's how many years? I can't understand how many years I not be here, you won't be here. So it's very, very long time. I think that Virginia is right. She said we need to have anthropologists. I think that we should add also artists. Why? You can speak of everything. We can do days and days of speaking. But sometimes when you see a great artwork, this artwork and is inside your heart and remain there in your mind, you understand better immediately which is the problem. And the collectors are men and women, not only women. I think that the cultural and artistic language, if he is from a great artist, it can reduce the time, no? I don't know if you saw, everyone, Don't Look Up in Netflix, no? It's a problem of the end of the world because we are not sustainable. If you see that film, you don't have to make many speeches, no? You understand? Last year I wrote to the United Nations. I think United Nations needs me. I'm nobody, I'm not an association, but they made me do an exposition of Pistoletto during the Young Week last year, no? You know that from the beginning of Sustainable Agenda, they decided that they had a break until 2015 and 2030 in 2023, the third week of September 2023. And I'm a private, and I'm the only person who made this exposition during the week. I mean, no, so we can do everything when we want, and the artistic language is very important. Has the ability to make a long step in few time. So I think that is correct to add anthropologists, but also the language of art, of culture. No, Dostoevsky used to say we should save the beauty, but sometimes the beauty can save us. And so I think it is very important. I mean, if during on May in Italy, your W7, there will be some photo of great artists, woman artists like Regina Galindo. She comes from Guatemala, and she makes this photo and on herself, no, of police who put water in the head. Is very violent. No? She's a great artist. You don't need to do anything. Imagine if in Rome during that time all the museum could have an exposition about equality of gender violence. No? It would be more impressive than, of 1 week of yes, of course, because everybody, each tourist is in Rome. They don't know that there is women's 7 with 7, no, but they can go to the museum. They go in Rome, no. Many people go there, and they could have a room with an exposition, little exposition, and a panel of W7. Yep. It could be extraordinary. This is the power of art and culture, I think.
No, let me just add, and I agree unconditionally with you, because, for example, working with the schools in Italy, particularly and also in France and Belgium, with the program Free to Live, there is a museum in 3D explaining economic violence, and we are using the arts and graphics made by the Accademia delle Belle Arti di Torino, and then we are using comics and graphic novels in 3 languages, and so all the children from different sides also of diversity and disabilities can participate, because also comics and design can explain, can tell the story. For example, we are using to represent the women in comics, from Wonder Woman to Mafalda towards the Marvel superheroines, and why they are represented in this way in the last 70 years. So I absolutely agree with you. Then the way to add arts and representative of arts is the better way to explain and be people involved into the concept, and also to people to reflect and to change sometimes your mind, or please, yeah, a bigger deep thinking that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and you know the power of art and of culture, of you know, breaking barriers and approaching even the youngest of us, or you know, those who
and
don't
we have
identify
here
as us.
L'Estraordinario, because into this incredible exhibition prepared by Terre des Hommes, there are more than 100 women that are extraordinary women, like Martina, that was represented in this picture. So this is another way to represent how women can do and can make a difference in this world.
Absolutely. And how are we doing on time, Martina? Should we open it up for a few audience questions, if there are any?
I think that
Do we want to bring in Ronit?
Yeah.
Of course. That would be great. So save your questions for lunch. I will introduce our, you know, the woman tasked with putting it all together and, you know, giving us actionable, memorable points to take with. And so that's, you know, that's no pressure, Ronit. Ronit Widman-Levy, she is the co-chair and executive producer of TEDx Palo Alto. She's a distinguished arts director. She has experience that encompasses public arts administration, global partnership building. She curates, fundraises, brands, presents, project manages. She does it all. And big proponent also of the power of art in changing the world. So Ronit, thank you so much for being with us and for helping us put it all into perspective.
Thank you very much, Francesca. First and foremost, I want to thank my distinguished colleagues here for their in-depth and wise introspections on the work that has been done, the work yet to be done, which I will try to focus on. Every one of them brings to us a profound truth about where we are headed should we choose to sit on the sidelines. Each one of us brings with them, in this room alone, great organizations, great capacity for change, and a choice to make. Will you play with a full deck of cards, and will you make your mark on the world and invoke change for women? I think from my perspective, there are a few things that I wanted to mention. I come from Silicon Valley, and as my role as TEDx co-chair and producer, I've always felt that it is my responsibility to leave a bigger door than the one that I had entered through. Each one of us can make that choice. I greatly value my colleagues and the wonderful board that we've curated at TEDx Palo Alto. I think the magic happens when you curate a board of men and women who are advocates, who are champions of women, of the intersection of technology and arts. For me is a great power, one of the greatest powers. Art is considered, to Alessia Panella's point, a soft power. It always has been. Nations have been using art to land their agendas, their narrative around the world, and we remember images, we remember photos that have changed our perspectives on historical events. We remember sculptures. We remember one woman's smile that is a narrative to so many of the greatest films and books. I think we could talk a little bit about some of the facts that were faced. So according to McKinsey and Deloitte and other very well-known data collectors and profoundly organizations who are into measuring results. I liked everything that was said here about the importance of measurable results, because we could talk circles around the issues of women's equality and financial violence. It's so easy to speak in a silo of women. And by the way, thank you to the one man who is attending this event. I wish there were more. I hope that online there are more. But it's very, very telling. We are talking to each other. We need to speak outside of our silos. We need to celebrate the male champions who are with us on this journey. We cannot do this alone. We need them. And the fathers of the children, to Ms. Littlejohn's point, the father of these women who were championing and speaking on behalf of women, we need to identify more of those. Those are the men who understand the disadvantages that are by design. They are the default of our society. So our societies, I should say. And at different levels. It's true that in the Western world, we can sit here and talk about equality and what we can do, and the legislations around our rights and how to defend ourselves in the court and to defy the odds. However, in many countries, that possibility does not exist yet, because women are facing such grave dangers on an existential level. So we need to address those as well. Right at this very moment, women make up 33% of tech-related workforce. If you drill down to this number, in computing, the number is about half of that. So it's important that we remember that when we declare those numbers, that we talk exactly about where do these numbers come from, what are they made of, and what choices have we made to have brought us here. And I think this is the good moment to tie in education. To make a profound change in the world, I think changing education and how we bring girls to a place where they have a seat at the table is very important. It is my opinion that it is a 20-year cycle. From the time girls enter the education system to the time they come out of college or entering college, we have a moment of grace where we can offer them opportunities to educate themselves about their finances, to liberate themselves in many cases from the social norms where they live at. Not always, but in many places you can create these situations where women are set up for success. It is up to us to set these systems, to advocate for philanthropy. I know quite a few philanthropic organizations who are very busy doing just that. I think we need to highlight those. We need to almost make a menu of what can you do if you're in this situation, where would you go, make that available online, and advocate for these girls, for these women who are at a disadvantage. We are very privileged to be sitting here in New York City in this room with the great minds that are surrounding us, with great capacity for change and wonderful intentions. However, it takes a village, meaning it takes the world, and we each have our own avenue to use as a vehicle for change. Wherever you're seated, you have the tools to invoke real change. You come out of this room, you set 3 to 5 goals in your company, in your organization, and you stay focused on those for 1 to 5 years, measure the results so that you know that you are doing right by the women, by the funders. I think the fact that 50% of women in tech leave their jobs before they turn 35 is very telling about what happens to women even after they've acquired an education and joined the workforce, because dangers and a lot of biases reside in the halls of companies that hire women and give them opportunities. So the work continues even after we've educated and placed women in what is seemingly work opportunities that should have solved, once you have a position in tech, your problems are solved. No, they're not. In fact, you're facing a whole new set of problems. I would like to ask this room if you have any clue about what percentage of female founders in tech receive what percentage of VC funding. Just answer that in your head if you have any clue. 2%. 2% of 100% is preposterous. And so what do? I always ask, so, we identify the problem. Good. Now what do? We create opportunities for female founders, and we facilitate introductions. We facilitate networking opportunities, which we do at TEDx Palo Alto. It's part of the agenda to make sure that we're using our platform to empower people in general, women particularly, and we bring to the stage the smartest female scientists, of course also males, but we want to give voice to those women who can inspire, who have walked through big doors and are intent on leaving even larger doors behind them. I think this is very, very important for all of us, because everyone in this room has that opportunity to practice. I also want to tell you a very fun fact that businesses with a diverse executive team are 25% more likely to have above average profitability. Well, it should be a no-brainer then, right? We should all want to have a very diverse executive team. But do we have those? No, women don't have enough. There's enough jobs on boards and on panels where decisions are made, and we need to push for that. Again, each of us has an opportunity during their careers to elevate women, and specifically younger women. Do not let them get to the age of 35 and decide that this is not for them because they're not supported. Create those opportunities. I feel that that old saying of high tide floats all boats is a wonderful one. Women's tide needs to be higher, because we are at a disadvantage that has been built into societies over centuries. I know we don't need to hear that, but maybe somebody out there needs to hear that the inequality is so grave and so vast that we need to make sure that we are setting some ground rules and framing laws and legislations around opportunities for girls and young women. I love Emily Dickinson's quote, and the name of her poem is, "Forever is composed of now." If you want to create a long-term change, carpe diem. You have a week here in New York, panels, people to talk to, change makers, decision makers. Go up to them. You have nothing to lose. Demand that there is equality for women across the board. I want to talk a little bit about the fragility of women, namely violence against women, and the way sometimes societies choose to look away from the fragility of women because it's inconvenient, and it then creates a situation where we may have to do something about it. I was born and raised in Israel. I've lived in the United States for many, many years, more than half my life. And the fact, to me personally, that the crimes of October 7th against women, which were premeditated against women, rape was used as a weapon of war. We cannot have that, not there, nor anywhere else in the world. If women in one part of the world are unsafe and can be raped and mutilated, girls and women, also men, but I think it's very important to mention women today on this panel. The fact that we're looking away from that and not demanding justice puts us all at risk. Women are at risk by default, and rape has been used as a weapon of war over centuries. It cannot be allowed at this point in history to repeat itself. And if it has happened, we need to talk about it. We need to hear testimonies. We need not to forget that it happened, not to put it aside, because it's putting everyone here at great danger, because it's then legitimized. It's legitimized in the silence that we choose to take upon ourselves. I feel that I want to end on a higher note, because this, to me, was one of the lowest points for humanity since the Holocaust, because the crimes were so awful and documented by the perpetrators. So for me, I want to ask you all to remember that these wonderful conversations that we're having here today, we're so privileged to talk about equality of pay, of gender, independence, the rights to a great lawyer to fight for you in court, if you're lucky enough to have your day in court. Some countries don't allow that. We have to think of the very basic right to be safe in the world, because women who are at a risk for being raped and mutilated and then forgotten, and that's all of us, depending on circumstances. It's all of us. Don't think that it can happen in one part of the world and not happen in another. It's happening in Afghanistan, it's happening in Africa, it's happening everywhere, it's happening in Palestine. If you want to make sure that girls and women have a future, make sure they are safe. And I urge decision makers who are listening today to take a strong stand. Save women first, and then give them the opportunity to thrive. I'm honored to have been called to summarize today's speeches. I feel empowered and inspired by the women who spoke here today. We are in good, if not great hands. And I hope that you will elevate all the women around you and make sure that girls have great opportunities for education, so that later on they can claim their seat at the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronit. I know you speak from the heart. And thank you to all of our panelists and contributors today. It's been such an inspiring conversation. Claudia, did you want to say a few last things? And Martina, thank you so much.
To stay on the camera. First of all, let me kindly ask you a big applause for Francesca Giuliana chairing this event. And to all of our distinguished speakers and all of you connected from worldwide and here with us. Obviously, thank you so much. Just let me comment, thanks for your call to action. We stand for all Israeli women and Palestinian women all over the world and all people suffering for war. And climate justice is one of our priority. And all together, also in this occasion, we can stand for peace. Claudia?
Okay, so thank you so much. We will follow with the networking, and thank you to Ronit for their words. It's not the fact that we never forget, we have to act to never forget and to act for the safety of all women and girls, from Israel to all the other countries, and remember also in Chad, in Yemen, and other countries where there is a lot of suffering. So we are here to act all together. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And see you in Rome for our summit, Connected or Live.
See you
Save
in
the
Rome.
date.
Bye.